Hello, everybody. It's Annie from Calling All Crows. I am so excited to welcome you back to week 4 of Warrior Women Wednesday. This is part of our weekly series in November to celebrate Native American Heritage Month in partnership with the incredible Return to the Heart Foundation. Before we get started, I would like to acknowledge the land that I am on. I am currently recording on the land of the Native Odawa and Potawatomi Nation. We are so excited to be ending out Warrior Women Wednesday with 2 incredible conversations. You're going to love it so much. I'm so excited to watch as well. We're here with Gina, who is the co-founder and co-CEO of Return to the Heart. And I'll kick it over to her in a moment to talk more about her background, what Return to the Heart does, and give some background on the women that we'll be hearing from today. But for those of you who are new, Calling All Crows is an organization that is dedicated to channeling the power of change through music and music fans. So we really connect music fans to movements for feminist justice and equality. So we're super excited to be partnering with Return to the Heart again, as they are here to uplift the voices of Native women and girls. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and let Gina introduce who we will be hearing from today and talk a little bit more about Return to the Heart.
Hagani, Nia Nana Binya. I'm Gina Jackson. I'm Western Shoshone and Oglala Lakota. Thank you so much, Annie. I appreciate the partnership with Calling All Crows, and also to Lena for just, working together has been so beautiful to lift up amazing Native women and their leadership, their big vision, their healing. All of it has been amazing. Today, we have 2 very special warrior women who are out in the world doing wonderful work. One of them is Dr. Joni Sweeney, who did a research project with Return to the Heart Foundation, and it's a snapshot and a call to action. So I'm really excited to have you meet her and to learn more about the research she did. And then we also have Emma Eaglehart White, who's a psychotherapist. And, this time of the year, there's a lot of times, stress and sometimes grief for Native people. We're just coming off of, a holiday that is not necessarily a good thing for us. When you really start digging down and learning the history that you weren't taught in our U.S. education system, it's so shocking and upsetting. But Emma is going to come in and give us some tools and some strategies, like a holiday survival kind of tips, and some beautiful native lens strategies to just have a better time and be able to get through these holidays and with some joy, and connected to family and connected to our culture. So I'm excited to have to get started. Hi, Joni. I'm so excited that you're here with us today to talk about the exciting research that you did. First, to kick off, I'm going to ask if you would share a little bit about yourself, and then share with us about this exciting research about how Native women are being funded in the philanthropic sector.
Hi, sister. Thank you so much for having me. Good day, relatives. Kuetsi Hopa. I'm Dr. Joni Marie Sweeney. I'm from the Pueblo of Cochiti and formerly with the Return to the Heart Foundation, and have since completed my research and moved into a new role, continuing with healing work. And I'm just honored to be back today to share a little bit more about why I'm so passionate about this work, why it's important, and why the call to action needs to continue to be pushed forward as an agenda in the coming years. And I think that it's going to continue to educate our philanthropic partners. So thanks for having me.
Wonderful. So I know you have some presentation to share with us today. I'll just let you kick it off.
Okay, sweet. Well, I will share my screen and I will dive right in. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Well, again, thank you all for joining us today. And the title of my dissertation and the full snapshot report, which will be available on the Return to the Heart Foundation website, is entitled Heart Story Curation, Indigenous Feminist Justice Leadership, and the Philanthropic Call to Action. And I specifically chose to go into this realm based upon my work previously in Indian education, economic development, working with small businesses, my own experience as an owner of a culturally responsive strategy firm, Corn Pollen Consulting, and then also the various boards that I've been a part of and have volunteered my time to and really dedicated myself into working with community and for the betterment of our future as Indigenous people. The photo that you see before you on the top left-hand side is one from another version of my heart work, which is what I'm currently doing now at the National Native American Boarding School Healing Coalition, but working with community on bringing awareness around truth, justice, and healing efforts related to the federal Indian boarding school policy. And the photo right below that is why I do this work. It's my children. I have a 15-year-old son, a set of twins that are 13 and 13, and my youngest is 11. And then the larger photo to the right really speaks to family, kinship, culture, and all the circles that I'm a part of, and really honored to carry forward this heart work in relationality, and also looking at what does the future look like for our Native women and girls. This work, as always in all of my research, is dedicated to our ancestors whose strength and resilience is a part of our DNA. And this particular photo was of Pueblo girls who entered Carlisle back in 1884. And for me, continuing to carry out healing work is what my continued focus has been, both strategically throughout my academic career and now interpersonally with how I network with community, and also moving forward through the work that I'm doing at NABS now. What's important to frame within this work and this research is a positionality that speaks not only from experience as a survivor, but also looking toward how we connect with our ancestors, how we connect with community, what our culture, our languages represent, and its ties to the land. So it's land, body, and spirit, and really standing in solidarity with that as well. So just a high-level introduction about why this work and why it's impactful. And when we look closer at the many ways in which Indigenous women's roles and the viewpoint from anthropologists, ethnologists, and how settler colonialism has shaped our communities and the impression of the role that women play in them, it's important to look at it from the perspective that the violence that we're seeing on the land is the same that we're seeing on our women. And with the continued rise of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and people in general, the call to action for this work is critical because of all the efforts that are being put into grassroots movements to address many of these challenges that we see within community, whether it's substance abuse, it's lack of access to fresh foods, it's lack of access to healing spaces, etc. What I witnessed during COVID-19 was this beautiful rebirth, recentering, and rematriation of Native women stepping into this inherent role and knowing how to respond to crisis. We know how to respond to this because it's in our blood memory, and we've seen crisis and epidemics like this before. And this is just one of a handful of the many ways that we support community as the backbone. So part of this magnification really helps us to better understand some of the statistics around what was happening in Indian country from 2020 to about 2021, and specifically looking at the ways that Native community was most highly affected by the pandemic. Multiple tribal communities, tribal nations, where COVID was extremely high, higher than other populations. And the photo on the right details an overview of the percentage of cases in the state back on May 1st, 2020. And so as you can see, we have about 53% of those cases statewide being American Indian, Alaska Native identified. But what's interesting to point out is that here in New Mexico, we only make up somewhere between 10 to 11% of the entire state population. So when we think about that as a challenge in our community, knowing that we're not only the minority in our community, we're affected exponentially by the virus, but to overall funding as a whole. And we have Native women who are stepping into these roles and carrying out their own hard work through their respective organizations, whether they're fiscally sponsored, their 501c3s, and or their projects that they're self-investing in. It's really critical that we continue to understand how this narrative continues to guide us in providing healing solutions to our communities, because we know what's best for our communities. And when we look at philanthropically how the average of philanthropic giving has been, we know that little to no funding comes to Native communities, Native serving organizations. That's the first part. And then the second part is even less goes to Native women and girls. And that's why I chose to focus my research on Indigenous-led grant making led by Indigenous women. So the Traditional Helpers and Healers Fund at the Return to the Heart Foundation was founded in 2020, along with the organization as a whole. And I was honored to be a part of it in many ways, and just was able to witness the beautiful heart work of all these women and their projects and what they're passionate about and how they seek to respond to community by providing those solutions. And so here's sort of a short list of all the activations that we saw, whether it was connecting to traditional wisdom keepers and language revitalization folks, teachers, harvesting of traditional medicines and planting and reintroducing those into community, especially around the time of COVID, looking at what medicines are best for us and how can we help our community to heal from the virus. Looking at spaces for healing women's sweat lodge, everything from wellness to food sovereignty to civic engagement, and looking at the many facets of opportunities to be able to empower community. Anti-niece empowerment is a great example. Sewing circles, some of our former grantees and existing grantees have focused on sewing circles, and one particular grantee sticks out to me, Tammy Buffalohead, and her work focuses on, it started out as a small circle, right, Gina? And then it moved into a much bigger one, and the way it continued to grow exponentially has been amazing. And they have a following of over 500 people now who join them over Zoom, using technology as an opportunity to be able to share and teach as well, I think was another very powerful opportunity. So in regard to the framework for how I wanted to pull this all together, and this is really from the perspective of academia, it's looking at strategy as a whole that I've utilized previously in my work with Corn Pollen Consulting, but looking at this diagram as an opportunity to blend all of these many layers that are critical to how we carry out the work that we do as Native women leading these efforts. So it's about kinship. It's about the relationship to the land. It's about embodying those core values in a way that continues to allow us to decolonize the Western world on what feminism means. And I know not everybody agrees with feminist terms as a whole, but I think looking at the ways in which we are activated to do this work, and it has a very nurturing effect to it in the ways that not only how we connect with community, but how we respond. And I specifically remember during this time, this activation of that inherent way of knowing was like, okay, so pandemic is here. I'm doing the virtual homeschooling with my kids. I'm sewing masks. I'm cooking food for relatives who are sick. I'm receiving these huge shipments of masks that are coming from our partners from all over the country, really all over the world, and loading them up and delivering them all over the state of New Mexico on my own because I want to help as many people as I possibly can. So thinking about the ways that our ancestors have, not only prayed us into existence, but prayed that we continue to carry out this heart work, I think is really the forefront of why many folks do the work that they do. It's about healing our bloodlines. And one of the most beautiful pieces that has come out of this working logic model is the ways in which Return to the Heart Foundation has had the opportunity to carry this out through its 4 focus areas, through civic engagement, climate justice efforts, narrative change, and restorative and regenerative development. Another high-level summary, which you can read more in detail about the tribal nations that were represented. You can see our grantees and where they're located in this map here. And regionally, you'll see the majority are in the West Coast, Southwest, and we have some folks up north as well. And just understanding the ways in which these women have heeded that call to action to support their communities and why they're passionate about the work that they do has been really inspiring. And I think that it continues to serve as that model to be able to respond to community. And many of them were self-investing, taking, funds from their own personal pockets and gathering the supplies that they needed to be able to create these healing circles or deliver food or grow food, harvest medicine. So it's really beautiful to see that all-encompassing approach. The focuses of their work also fell into these categories, which we could probably break down into bigger buckets, but just for high level, this is an overview of them. And it's really inspiring to see the work that's happening with Native youth as well, and then wellness as a whole. So here's a couple quotes from participants who shared their vision for healing. So my vision is to reestablish our traditional food systems by planting native white blue corn, squash, watermelons, and also using the youth to maintain the fields with harvesting and sharing healthy goods. My vision for healing is teaching relatives to reconnect with the kinds of teachings and movement that have always been a part of who we are, helping our bodies and minds remember ancestral memory. So it's really beautiful to see that intergenerational cycle of support continuing to be carried out past, present, and future. My vision is to bring consciousness awareness to clients to help them to understand that everything that they need for healing and for progression is inside you to create consciousness and awareness. And so it's like having a ceremony for yourself through maintaining the body. Not only that, but also connecting to the inner world inside yourself through movement and promoting wellness and being able to live a healthy lifestyle. So if you're conscious and aware within yourself, then you're conscious and aware with the things that you do and the things that you're intaking or the choices that you make. And so understanding that you are the power, you're the power that can change or shift things within your life for the better. That one really moves me because I feel like we're all on this journey to healing from the things that we've experienced within our lives. And sometimes it's easy to get lost in the work that we forget that it's continuously taking those baby steps to be aware that we do have that power to support our own well-being. And I also asked participants what has helped them to heal from their experiences. And so these are just a handful of some of the modalities for which these sisters are looking at healing and being conscious of the ways that they're participating in their own healing as well. So for many, it might be the movement pieces. For some, it's connecting to the land, to animal relatives, having connection with kinship ties, and also reconnecting with culture and ways of knowing. Prayer was also another one as well. So here on the right-hand side, you'll see some of the most frequently used words in the 2 focus groups that were held. You can learn more about that in the full report. And those words were healing, thankful, women, together, and boarding schools. And really, recommendations go back to this call to action, that the opportunity to create safe and shared spaces to be able to empower one another to carry out this work, to continue this work, so that we aren't getting 1, burnt out, 2, that we're getting funded, and 3, that we continue with our life ways to empower our children, our grandchildren, so that we're healed. And overall, looking at the ways in which women have represented for time immemorial examples of breaking cycles, of continuing with keeping culture alive, of being the backbone of communities. It's been inspiring to see that today we're still doing that, and we're doing it from the standpoint of being these modern day warrior women. So altogether, this is why it's critical for funders to support this work. And to summarize, this was a quote that came out of an article from Indian Country Today last year during Native Women's Equal Pay Day. And I said, if you believe in us, invest in us. Invest in us, because we are the key to healing our communities. We know what's best for our communities, and we deserve to give our children a future where they can fully thrive and be proud of who they are. For more information, there's my contact information, and just really honored to share the summary. And I know that the report that you can look at on the Return to the Heart Foundation website, download, will provide all those details. But if you would like to contact me, there's my email. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Joni. It's so beautiful to just, see how you have lifted up Native women and shine the spotlight on, who we are and what the needs are, and, and challenging funders to invest in us. It's so beautiful. Thank you for coming, and thank you for sharing today.
Thanks for having me, Gina. So good to see you. Virtual hug to you.
Thank you. Hi, Emma. It's so good to see you. I'm so glad that you're able to join us for Warrior Women Wednesday. Emma Eagleheart White is a psychotherapist who's here today to talk to us about what's on her heart today. Emma, I'm going to pass it to you and ask if you introduce yourself.
Yes, thank you for having me. Emma White na Wambly Wiakawi Imachiapi Chante Washde Nape Chiuzape. Hello, my name is Emma White, Emma Eagleheart White, and my Lakota name is Eagle Feather Woman. And I greet you with a good heart and a handshake. I am a psychotherapist for the Oneida Nation Reservation in Wisconsin. And I have been working as a psychotherapist for 7 years. Prior to this, I worked as a domestic violence advocate for the Oneida Nation for 5 years, and before that as a youth enrichment services advocate for Native students in the high school public system.
So Emma, what's on your heart today?
What's on my heart today, and I had a hard time with this question as well, just because you know, this time of year is very difficult for a lot of people, and I feel like especially Native American people. When I was reflecting on this, I thought about how I saw a post earlier today from another Native person who said, you know, it was kind of like, this is what my face is when people say, you know, happy Thanksgiving. And it was like, this should be a national day of mourning instead of, you know, being like Thanksgiving. And it really made me think. It also caused me to think about how much, you know, there's people suffering in the world right now. There's, you know, a lot of grief, and especially for a lot of Native people, there's a lot of grief. And I also thought about, I know for a lot of Native people, there's a lot of grief because, you know, there was an article in the New York Post that talked about how COVID-19 impacted Native American people more than other ethnicities, and it was due to the comorbidities that went along with people passing from COVID. And Native people have high comorbidities. We do, you know, with high blood pressure and diabetes and heart problems, and you know, you name it. We have a lot of that, and a lot of us have seen that even in our own families. We've had family members pass away, and I did too. I, you know, had um my uncle passed away, you know, and then my aunt passed away, and it, you know, it was a lot of it was related to COVID, and fear of going into the hospital, and fear of catching COVID. And so there were things that were missed that could have been caught, and you know, perhaps they could have been here today. But you know, so I think a lot about mourning and grief, that, you know, this time of year everyone wants to be happy, and they want to, you know, celebrate and everything, and that's great and it's wonderful, but it's also a very difficult time for a lot of people, and especially Native people, this time of year. And a lot of people who are struggling with addiction issues, and you know, they're trying to stay sober and stay clean, and this is the time of year where there's a lot of drinking and a lot of parties. But most of all, I think it's grief, and also, I guess, thinking about like, how do we take care of ourselves during this time, and how do we say no? You know, how do we stay strong? How do we protect ourselves and protect our own space, and be kind and gentle to ourselves, you know, and put ourselves first? Because a lot of women, we do not put ourselves first. We put children first, we put elders first, we put our families first, and we're often the last ones, you know. So I was also thinking about that self-care and being able to set those boundaries, and say no to things that we don't need to do or even want to do sometimes.
So what are some of the strategies if you could have this self-care kit? What else would be in that kit?
Uh, well, I did mention the holiday survival kit, and I was just mentioning earlier today that I saw a pamphlet that said holiday survival kit. And I was saying to one of my coworkers, I'm like, I need a holiday survival kit. And they were like, me too, right? And so I think for me, a holiday survival kit has to involve sage, sage and cedar and tobacco, um, sweetgrass, traditional medicines. It has to, just because there's so much going on around us, and a lot of there's a lot of energy and everything, and trying to stay grounded and trying to stay present can be very hard. When you're talking about depression and anxiety, and I heard someone say, like, depression is about thinking about the past, while anxiety is worrying about the future. And that made me think, and that's true. And how do we stay grounded and present so that we can do our work and be there for ourselves and our families. So definitely sage, but also a lot of the other traditional medicines that are out there. And I know, like, I'm just getting over like bronchitis, but there's so many traditional medicines that are out there, and that to drink teas, and drinking teas, bergamot. And I was just talking about getting more vitamins and elderberry and echinacea and all those good things to stay healthy. And I was actually talking with my grandmother this morning about that, and she was reminding me about it too, because she said, "Remember when you gave me the elderberry vitamin?" And it actually kept me well, like, the whole winter long. And so I was like, "Oh yeah, that's what I need to do. I need to get elderberry." But different things like that, but also like taking the time to decompress, from all the stress that we hold in our bodies, and wherever we hold it in our bodies. So how do we release that? And if that's meditation, if that's exercise, if that's yoga, Pilates, Peloton, whatever kind of exercise that you can do, walking. But I always notice, I always notice how much I hold that in my body, the stress. But I would recommend different things like that, even journaling. It's very helpful.
That's great. Now you also put some strategies down on paper. Tell us about your book.
In the book, we that I co-wrote with my sister Sarah Eaglehart, the book is called Warrior Princesses Strike Back. And in the book, we listed a lot of different ways. We also had journal prompts in the back of the book to help people to reflect on themselves. There was a section called How to Be an Ally, but also questions about how do you take care of yourself. And I think even just talking about what one small tip with staying grounded, which I learned this working in domestic violence field, was calling your spirit back. And that was something very easy and simple to do, which I share with all my clients, actually. And I tell them that you can use your Indian name if you have one. If you don't have one, that's okay. You can use your English name. And all you do is tell them you can say it out loud or you can say it in your head, but you just ask the creator, Chingashala, I ask for you to help me to bring my spirit back to me. And then you say your name 4 times. And each time you say your name, you allow your spirit to move further and further into your body. So I would be saying Wambly Wiakawi, Wambly Wiakawi, Wambly Wiakawi, Wambly Wiakawi, until I feel it go all the way to my feet. And then I just thank the creator, Wopila Tanka Midaki Yasi, and end it. And I always ask the clients if they can feel that. And a lot of times they say that they can feel the difference.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. If folks want to find your book, where can they go to find it?
They can find it with Feminist Press or with Amazon. It's also at Barnes and Noble, but we also have our book on audio on Spotify.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us today. And we appreciate, all that you shared with us. And we look forward to seeing what else you're going to be doing in the future.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Gina, thank you so much for putting this together. That was incredible. We so appreciate working with you and our partnership. And I really want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you for the time and the energy and the love that you put into making Warrior Women Wednesdays happen. I know at Calling All Crows, it is genuinely one of our favorite pieces of programming that we do all year long. For those of you watching, there are tons of ways to support Return to the Heart Foundation, so I encourage you to check them out. We'll drop their website link below. Check out the women that we heard from today. Do some research, share with your friends and family. And if you haven't seen the other installments, they are on the Return to the Heart Facebook page, as well as Calling All Crows. So check those out as well. Gina, is there anything else folks can do to share and support?
I would just say that we need allies. We need people who are going to mention us when we're not in the room, who will open doors and even stand with us while we break glass ceilings. It is not easy, and a fight that we need help. So join us. You can go to our website, www.returntoheart.org, and there's a link where you can join the circle and stand with us.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, thank you all again so much for watching. This was our last episode of Warrior Women Wednesday, but like I said, there is so much more to learn, and watch the other episodes if you have not. And we will see you all very soon.